Hi there. I'm trying to act like I'm enjoying this because I really am. But this is a day that we're going to do videoing of the classes because we can't meet anymore. And it's a day that I don't feel super wonderful. I've had a sore throat and I'm determined I'm going to get past it. But I went ahead and did a lot of work to try to show and what, I don't know if you can see that I've got here my samples for the collar that I emailed everybody about last week. I hope you took a look at our textbook on page 76. And I tried to talk about each of the photos and what was going on. So today I'm going to show it to you, and mine isn't going to be quite as put together because I've tried to do it fast. And as you can tell, all of this interfacing should be the pad stitched interfacing, and it's just a piece of interfacing. And I don't have my tape, the stay tape on the edges of each lapel like I do in the jacket, which is right up here. And you guys remember when we talked about that, when I was teaching that in the classroom, and I'm going to refer back to that in a little bit, but in here where all of the tape was sewn in, the twill tape is sewn in all inside, right inside all of this. Remember, clear down to where the seam was for the hem to start. Okay, and I'll talk more about that later. I'm just gonna try to go back and review a few things today. And hopefully this will make sense to you and help you. But what I try to teach to you will be found also in the textbook. But let me just tell you, this is in my kitchen. And my granddaughter, Abby, is filming me. She's going to come take a bow.
Hello.
My beautiful granddaughter. And we're working together trying to finish out this semester for you. And I remember one day at the beginning of one of our classes when I was pretty worried about an illness coming that could get to the point that this one has. And I just had a feeling early on at the beginning of this semester that this was going to be a semester that was a little bit different than the others. Today I received, and this is Monday when we're starting filming, Monday the 20, what is today?
Third? 23rd.
Okay, and the fashion show is canceled. So we're not going to have a fashion show this year to keep everybody healthy. But we are able to take photos of our items that we have made and share those. We can do that. Just trying to protect everybody. So anyway, a few other things that I wanted to tell you too. When things are closed down and when times get kind of crazy, and I probably have said this before, but it's wonderful to be able to sew. When you sew, you can calm down, you can kind of feel in control of your environment a little bit more. You can use your skills to make something, and it's just therapeutic. That's one of the things that I've been hearing on some of the TV channels and the encouragement that people have been giving, saying that to find something to participate in, something to do when you're in your home, and this is perfect. So we're not going to not finish this. Okay, we're going to finish our jackets, and they're going to be wonderful. And we still have some time to work on them too. So I want to show you my old Foff sewing machine. This is not the one I sew on all the time, but I bought this at an antique store. And for the work that we do on this jacket, it mostly just does a straight stitch and a reverse, and I think it might have a zigzag, but we don't even need a zigzag on this machine, on this jacket really. So much of what we do on this jacket involves a needle and thread, and so I've got my needles and thread hooked up here. I've got a couple of them stuck on me here, ready to go, and one here. So my trusty little machine with white thread is just going to be for some demo work, and I'm not real sure how far we're going to get today, but if not today, my little trusty Foff from long ago that probably was hardly ever used because it looks brand new but very old. Bought it at an antique store in Prescott, Arizona. Anyway, we might not use it today, but we might. We're just going to see how far we get. So I'm going to move back a little bit. One of the last things that I talked to you about when we met in class, I handed you the how to stitch sleeve heads. And I told you that to read through it and try to understand it. We aren't quite ready to install the sleeve until we get our collar really nicely figured out. And I had to go ahead and put together my collar quicker than I had really wanted to, partly so that I could demonstrate the interior portion, the facing portion of the buttonhole, of the bound buttonhole on my jacket. And so what I ended up doing was just basting in the sleeve head. It's just basted by basting thread in here, and we aren't going to really install it until we get the sleeve itself installed, like it tells us here on the page where it says on number 2, where it says prepare the jacket and sleeve heads, and then down here where it says set by the number 2, set the sleeves in the jacket. So we're going to have to put our sleeves in the jacket before we actually sew the sleeve heads in. And I may have you do your sleeve heads just a tiny bit different than she's telling you here, but it'll be very close to that. But to make sure that there's a lightweight, I think you remember seeing my relatively lightweight interfacing in the top of the sleeve, around the top portion of the sleeve, just to get your sleeve ready to go for that. Okay, the interfacing in, and then to cut the, she suggests here cotton batting or wadding, which has a glaze on one or both sides. And then she kind of talks about feathering the lower edge of it. So just read through that, and I'm going to show that in more detail after we get our collar completely figured out, because I think some of you might be a little puzzled by the directions in the book. I think that they're very good, but I'm going to try today to show you, I'm going to lay that right down there. I'm going to try to show you a little bit in more depth what they're trying to teach you. And I'm using the fabric that I made this jacket out of. You guys have seen and handled this jacket in the classroom quite a bit. And what I'm showing you today is the pattern that this jacket was made from. So let me hang that up here. See that? And we'll talk about how this went together. We've got the under collar and the upper collar. And what you learn from the textbook is that the upper collar attaches to the lapel that folds to the public side. Okay, so upper collar lapel that folds to the outside or public side, but here it flips over. Okay, at this roll area. Okay, and remember that we inserted, remember, from up here at this point and down to this point, we inserted the stay tape. And if you take a look at this jacket, the brown one, it's still open and we can see that stay tape in there, okay, right in here. Remember that? So make sure that you do that. Let me get this pin out right here so that you can see that. You're going to want to make sure you do that. All right. But the lapel has to be in place soon after we put the stay tape on. And what I have here is just a portion of the lapel. The stay tape would have been applied here, and then it would have gone clear down to, let's say, about in here where the roll would happen. All right, let's show you back on this side. You like all my little inventions for using my household equipment here? So here we have this part, all right, and our stay tape would have been placed on here, and this is a little bit short of the roll area so that you kind of get an idea what we're working with here as I have it broken down and showing the interior. So what I'm having here is, and this is the upper collar, which can be can have an iron-on interfacing, and sometimes I think when I made this jacket I put the lightweight hair canvas on the upper collar and the under collar. Now how do we know that this is the under collar? I just pointed to it. It's this seam. The under collar is a two-part pattern, okay? And if you can look closely at the grain of the interfacing, you see that it's cut on the bias. And you can also tell that this grain is cut on the bias. So the under collar has stability because of this seam right here, okay? So that kind of limits its amount of stretch, but it's going to stretch this direction. And notice how when I stretch it this direction, what way does it want to go? Just naturally. It bends up and over, okay? And this one, remember I showed you this one in the classroom, and this one is the upper collar. This one wants to bend over in this is such a wonderful pattern that it wants to bend over and curve the way it needs to complete the upper collar rolling over the under collar. It's just the way it's all constructed. If you can see that, isn't that cool? And then we've got our notches here that we're going to match. Okay, and these steps are all shown in these pages. All right. this is basically the first page, and in the email that I sent, which my email said to me that everyone that was on the group email received the email. So I hope you looked at it. And your response back to me will help me know that you know, receive attendance for having looked at the email and participated by listening. So can you kind of get the idea for how this is rolling? And then we're going to talk about how this connects right here. All right, let's take a look here to get the idea once again. The upper collar, the lapel, and then the under collar right here, this part has a dart. Many of your patterns had a dart, and this pinches and makes a pulled in area there so that it can roll. It pulls that roll into place. And if you can see that, it's just a natural roll that occurs there, right in alignment, exactly beside the dart on both sides. Okay, right here. And there's the dart. So here's my dart right here on both of these sides. And it had to be pressed in. There's on my table. This is my dining table, or my kitchen table. My bigger table's in the other room. But we've got our dart, and then we've got our collar, our upper collar, and how it is going to attach right here. This can be one of the most troubling attachments. That's why I decided I just had to make this sample to show you. Hopefully you looked at the directions last week, and then today the sample may make more sense to you. But fitting all these little parts and pieces together makes a huge difference. And there are places where it might tell you to place some ease. I know on my pattern, it had little spots where it said to place some ease into some of these places, which is going to help the roll, okay? It's going to help it roll and curve so that it functions beautifully like this one does. I mean, this collar just is so cooperative. This jacket needs a good pressing. I've worn it so much and just kind of tossed it around. And it holds its shape really, really well. So looking at the directions, we see that we have notches here that we're going to match. We're going to pin that into place. And right at, if you see right here where you've got this line attaches right where the dart starts. So that little point, this little seam turning from one direction and making a kind of a right turn is right there at the dart. Okay, so make sure on this side you've got everything lined up correctly to pin that into place, and then you will, it leaves a space open for you to turn it, and you're actually going to probably need to snip it open. I'm not looking at the pattern guide, but I can just tell and feel that it needs a little slash so that it can turn that right corner like this, okay? And if I was actually in the classroom, I would be saying, do you have questions about this? Hopefully not. Maybe you have questions about, like, Brenda, did you comb your hair today? And I think I did, but I ran out very early for groceries because at the stores in Ahwatukee, if you don't get there, actually I arrived at 7, like 7:10, and they were cleaned out. So I took home Kleenexes and bananas and things. Not always what I thought I was going to get, but we know our main item we're hunting for is toilet paper, right? Yeah, toilet paper. And because that's such a major food item. Yes, toilet paper stew. Okay, so here we have that pinned in, and in our guide it tells us to go in and to baste it into place. Okay, but doesn't that look, that's cool. That's gonna work right there. So both sides get sewn in that way. So we will attach, and we're just pinning for now, and then it tells us to hand baste it, seeing if all the parts and pieces fit together in a way that we like them. And it looks possible that it might work. Then we sew by machine. Okay, and I have white thread on this machine, so I do have my navy blue here. Have it in here. I'll have to get it. But anyway, matching up the notches right here and making sure that where we stop right here is really important. And there will be some ease in this one, because in this side of it, because it's going to help it curl back against the jacket. All right. So we've got this pinned in, and so that we see how the seam constructs there. And it can be, I've had so many students come to me and just ask, how does this go? I don't get it. Once you see it and once you do it, then you understand it. It just makes a lot of sense. And it's always helpful to look at a garment that is already put together so that you can just follow how that progresses. So you see right here, this seam right here, attaching here, meets up right where the dart comes into play. Okay, this seam right here, that's what I'm showing you over here, right where this dart comes into play. Okay, and then we make that right hand turn. Okay, and this right here, this would be, it's not a complete 45-degree angle right hand turn, but it's a slanted right hand turn to come up here to start where the little vent will be. And the vent has its own little idiosyncrasies that we're going to talk about. Okay, and you see how the collar does not quite extend out as far on this pattern as the lapel, but on this jacket it did. When I constructed this collar on this one, it did. I measured to make sure, and this is how you make sure. You want both to be exactly the same length there and length here and the same shape. Like, you don't want one rounded and one, pointy and the other one not. If you do one that way, you have to do them both. And it's the same on this jacket, okay? You measure to make sure both, because they can turn out different lengths. Even if it's like a 1/4 inch might not show as much, but it's better to have them exactly. A 1/2 inch will show. So make them measure one against the other to make sure they're the same. All right, so I need to go in and hand stitch that. But before we do that, we're going to go to the other side. Now, I know that this is the undercolor because of that seam, okay? That's how I know. And what I'm going to do right here is, because I basically constructed this today, I'm going to do another for some of you who are a little bit farther behind, or you didn't see exactly how the pad stitching was done, or you might, after a few weeks, we've had a few weeks off now, need a refresher. So I pad stitched this part. I started down in here and made the stitching closer together, just because it's always good right at the back of the neck to have, which would be this area on the jacket, right back in here, to have it a little bit more secure where your interfacing is stitched on the back area there. It just gets a lot of roll there, there's kind of a stand in that, and then a roll up above it. So it's always a good idea to have it secure, and that's why we're encouraged to have it a little bit tighter and closer together. But just take a look at the technique that I'm going to use here. And some of you who did this in class were telling me you really kind of liked doing it, and it was fun to sit there and do our pad stitching and just kind of visit. Doesn't it seem weird that that was so long ago and that we can't even do that now? But, you know, we'll do it again. There have been crazy things go on before that we get through. But this is basically the pad stitching. You want to come in close? You're coming in close. Good. Abby knows what to do. She's very good at this. So we're just, you notice how I hold it. This finger keeps the needle from going too far through. You don't want thread to show through, but you want it to attach the hair canvas where it needs to be attached. So we do, remember how I told you to thread, and I know some of you students would thread several needles and have them ready to go so that you didn't run out of thread super quickly. And it's always nice because you'll get almost to a end point and then, like I just did, ran out of thread. So good thing I have another one hooked to my front of my shirt. And I'm going to have a lot of cleaning up to do after I'm done here. One of them is white, and that's going to be for this little guy right there. We're going to talk about in a minute. So here's my other thread that I prepared to do pad stitching. And I don't know how you put a knot in the bottom, but I used to think it was so weird watching my mother roll it back and forth. That my mother knew how to make a good knot, and it depends on how you like to make knots. I do roll it back and forth a lot. So to make the stitching align so that it goes outward and just kind of align side by side in a way you like it. I'm just going to go back because I showed you in class, but I know some of you weren't quite ready to start utilizing it. I hope by now that you have. But you're going to enter, and that knot is a little bit fat. If I had thin fabric, I'd have to trim it down a little bit, but I think we'll be okay. But I want to follow this pattern. I'm going to need to go outward this way. Out, and then make my little stitch, picking up a little piece of the wool fabric, but attaching it through, sewing through the interfacing, the hair canvas. And so this way it makes kind of an outward V from the thread stitching that's right beside it. Okay, and let me show you how, when I get up here to the top, I'm going to turn around and turn it this direction so that when I go through this way, let me make sure that I'm doing it the way let me think here for just a minute. Sometimes I have to do that. Yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to come back and go in this way. And so you can turn the piece back and forth to make the style and the design you want. Remember, I told you, it doesn't really matter. We're just trying to attach the interfacing. So if you don't do it perfectly, which I really felt like on the back, this one, take my lining out on the back right here of my jacket. It's not fabulous, but it's fine. There's not anybody going to go in and look at it after I get my lining stitched over it. So its purpose is to attach in a systematic way your hair canvas to the wool fabric or to the jacket fabric, whatever it is made of. As you know, I love working on wool. I've become a wool advocate, really. But you can see the design that just kind of curves around. And then when I get down here, I'm going to turn around and go back up. And I was telling you one day that sometimes to hurry up, to make some of these samples, I had to really speed my work up. So I would go in and stitch in about 3 of them this way and then hold onto your thread so it doesn't knot, and then you end up with 3 of them stitched. Just enter in, poke through the fabric and make 3 stitches and then pull them through, and you've got that whole line done. All right? So hopefully that is a review enough to help you understand. I'm going to go ahead and finish that later. But let me talk to you now about, looks like I have another one there. I was ready to go on that. I'm just going to break that loose because we'll use that a little bit later. Leave that one. This one needs to be stitched too, and I'm going to finish that a little bit later. So you see how we prepared the upper collar and the upper lapel pieces, okay? So here's the under collar, and this is going to be, actually, I said that wrong, I think. Let me check here. It gets confusing. I better remind myself. I don't want to confuse you. Upper collar to upper lapel. There we go. So I've got to make sure that I attach this correctly. I'm not sure I did. I think this goes there, and under collar goes onto that. Yeah, I was listening to the news and I got myself backwards. So let's take this off. Yep. So, as I have told you many times before, we pay attention to what we're doing, and then that's why pinning it and basting by hand makes such a nice difference. Right while I'm at it, I know already I'm going to need to do a little snip right there, and I'm going to need to do a little snip right there. So we learn from mistakes, including me. I was trying so hard to get this put together that I wasn't paying attention enough. So thank heaven I had my jacket, huh? So this goes under collar, and our little dart is going to attach right there, actually on that side. And this one is going to attach on this other side. So hopefully when you are able to look at this, you will be able to recognize what it is you're trying to do and not make that mistake. All right, so here we are. We're going to attach here at this corner, and there's our little dart, or our little notch. So if you make that mistake, and this has a little bit of ease right in here, which means it's going to pull it inward a little bit, so it right in here there's a little bit of ease, and check your pattern to make sure that your pattern might be asking for that, because I know those of you who had those Claire Schaefer patterns, hers probably did have that. But notice how I'm pinning this in, and this is going to stretch a little bit in here too, so all of those little techniques make it roll the way that it should. I didn't get this trimmed in here. I was just trying to hurry so much getting that put together. All right, so there we've got under collar attached to under lapel that has the dart. The under lapel has the dart, okay? Yay, we got that corrected. Glad I didn't already stitch that together. But check that on yours, okay? So that's going to go up there. That's going to go up there. That's what I get for having a headache today. My brain isn't doing its job well enough. Okay, matching our little notches. And you know what? I should have seen, and I did have a question. I just didn't want to say it while I was on camera. I was thinking, that other one had a double notch, and these two have a single notch. That should have been a signal to me that it was the wrong one. But no, I went ahead and put it on there because I was in a hurry, and I just thought, yeah, they'll never know. Thank you for, I'm sorry. Maybe you wouldn't have known. That I'd have taught you wrong. Okay, let's say it again. Okay, here we've got it on my table. The under lapel that we see right here, the under lapel has the dart. Okay, the dart. And the under collar right here attaches to the under lapel. So that's the way it should be pinned together now. Yay. Got that one. So this one, and I'm not real thrilled with how that turned out right there with my interface. Kind of slipped on me. I was doing that in class. I took it all off and was trying to do it over for you guys, and I don't know that anybody looked or watched. But see right here, I should have known double notch. Double knot. Okay, that's a hint right there. Okay, watch those things. And like I've said to you many times, we learn from our mistakes. And remember also, Brenda is the master of making mistakes. I make them all the time. But just don't give up on yourself. If I didn't correct my sewing mistakes, I would have nothing that looked very good. I'm so, like half of my time is spent correcting my mistakes. And you would think, well, you made it once, I guess you won't make it again. I could. Probably would. Not because I wanted to, but sometimes I'm just doing a bunch of things when I'm sewing and I'm not really that engaged, like I'm talking on the phone or anyway. So there, that is upper collar, upper lapel. And the upper lapel is not going to have the dart, okay? Does that kind of help you? And then to match notches, it's always good to make sure the notches are the same. You know, there's a reason. They're trying to help us not make mistakes. But sometimes, you know, sometimes. So right here at this point, right there, it'll give you a little mark on your pattern where the little circle, it's usually a circle, and you see how with that little slit that I made, I can then open it up. This is like a pivot. Remember when you did pivots in advanced sewing, where you're going to turn a corner and one piece makes a V shape? That's what this is right here. It's a pivot. Okay. So there we've got that. And now that we corrected that, remember under collar has a seam. Under lapel is going to have the dart, and the upper collar is going to curve this way. The under collar is going to curve this way. This curves over that way, and this curves over this way. And these are just going to be without darts, that upper lapel. Okay, so now we'll just quickly hand baste this in. And I'm going to go ahead and use a darker thread, which probably won't show, but just baste it in like the directions in your book say to do. And then make sure I have a knot in the bottom of that. I think I do. Roll it and put that knot in. And then just stitch it into place. Make sure everything fits. This will help us get it all into place. And make sure this, guys, I cannot emphasize enough. Don't have one seam edge sticking up and have both of them exactly the same length and the same width. Don't zigzag or sway out of the stitch line. All right, the stitching line has to be very exact here. It makes a difference in the final outcome. All of these, that's one of the things with a jacket. You have to have uniform and straight line stitching. Okay? And you can't have part of your seam being stitched 3/8 and then you expand it to 5/8 and 4/8 and just not a straight line. It has to be exactly straight line. So here we are, like it tells us in our instructions in the textbook. We're basting it together. And here I am at the end right here. So I'm gonna stop, and then we would go to the other side and baste the other side together. And I'm just going to keep this right here because I've still got to finish that. All right, so this is under collar and under lapel. And you see how this is all stitched together now. And so we can open up that seam. And right here, we're probably going to do a little clip so that that little piece is going to make a problem in bulkiness if we don't do a little V-clip, so that those two seam allowances can lie flat back to back right here. And then we clip this one open right here so that everything can fit together, and then we'll use the iron to press it. How's that? We want to make all of this nice and flat in here. Actually, let me just go ahead and press it. I think my iron is on. My iron is on. This is my new iron I bought myself for my birthday, the day after Valentine's Day. It was my birthday, so it's pretty new. I haven't used it an awful lot, but we're gonna start it and then I'm gonna steam it. Actually, I put my water in there, so it's all steamy already. Got my tiny little table. This is when I do classes in my home. I use my tiny ironing board so that I don't have to bring mine in from my room. But we're gonna press this open. Press it flat and open. And it looks like I left a pin in it. That wasn't good. All right. I didn't get that little section open enough right there. But it's really important to get this open. If I was using my ironing board across the table, I'd be using this point down here a little bit more. But make sure that you're very careful to use a press cloth. Here I am not using a press cloth. This is a seam allowance. And I want you to make sure you know where this little point right here is. Right in there. Because that is where the little vent, the little V here in that little section is going to connect. The upper collar and the under collar have to connect right there. Okay, so right on down in here, we're going to pull the upper and under apart. It looks like I've still got a pin stuck in there. Get that out. I stitched it, but I didn't get all my pins out. Okay. I'm just kind of seeing how this steam presses. These little sleeve rolls can come in really handy for little parts like this where you really want a surface that sticks upward as you're trying to press. And my ham that I have over across the table is also good for this. Okay, so get it pressed open because we're going to need it in this configuration when we stitch the upper and under together. That you have to have these seam allowances pressed open, and that's when I did this jacket. That's how it was too, pressed open this way, so they meet one another flat against each other. Okay. All right. So get that all done and do both sides, both right side and left side. You can do it kind of like this. Every time I do that, it bends backward on me. Go and stay where I put you. There, that's a little better. You know what? Dang it. I promised I wouldn't use naughty words, but nobody's gonna see it in here. This is the inside, so I'm just gonna make it obey me by not using a press cloth. It's not obeying me well enough. Okay, so there it is. And so on this side, don't ever not use the press cloth. Always on this side. All right, so this is what it's going to end up looking like right here. And it will end up looking, remember this is the under collar. So that's what it's going to end up looking like right here. And it's not sewn by machine, so after I get it all pressed and I see that it fits fine, then I can go in and stitch it by machine. Okay, so there's that one. And then we're going to do the same thing here. This one will get stitched by hand and pressed open in the same way, okay, with that little piece there, at the little snip there, and then this is going to have a little V-clip on this pivot. and it'll get pressed open. And then when we put the two together, this is the part that I really want to stress, right in here, and you have to really watch for this. They talk about it on page 78. They're talking about going in and preparing the little V vent, and then the roll of the collar. You make sure that what they're showing there, the roll of the collar, this is the upper collar, and so the roll of that goes over this one that curves downward, and it shows it. It's showing it on page 79. Shows this part so that we make sure that they fit one another properly. All right, so that the notches match. We see the notches matching, and the center, the exact center, there should be a little clip or some mark to show that is going to go right in the center of that undercollar seam. Then it's showing us down here how that all gets pinned together, and then pinned from the inside. All right, all of it pinned together, and then right here it's showing us how, this is on page 81, it's showing us the way that we prepare to attach the two, the upper collar and under collar, at the little corner points to make the little V vent. And you notice, if you want to do a close-up of this, it shows right here on this point that we're not going to have our stay tape deeply into this area. There's a little empty spot here that will be somewhat filled by the seam allowance, but we're also going to trim the seam allowance once we make that corner. But our stay tape will be right up against that. And remember, the stay tape that we put in causes, if you can see it here, evidence of it, but you can see it inside on this one. What it ends up doing is making the seam allowance just a little rounder. Okay, this seam allowance is not just flat and empty looking. It makes it rounder and fluffier looking. We want fluffy seams in those areas. We don't want them just flat and mashed one against one another. So let's take a look here when we see that it all fits together like this. Then this is how they're telling us to do it in here. We're going to pin it and stitch together this way, and I'll do it on this one side so that we can see. So this is going to attach upper and under collar. This we know is our upper collar because it doesn't have the seam in the middle of it. So we would stitch by hand, first of all, down to this point right there. Okay? Stitch it down to right where it tells us the meeting point is, a stopping point, and it'll be right at the end of this seam. All right, but this one doesn't attach to this at all. This just stops. It stops right at that point, as does this seam stops right at that point. They don't cross over each other. All right, this is kind of a meeting of seam allowances. And that is sometimes confusing to people, how these little lapel vents are constructed. They attach only to a certain point and then they stop. This one stops here. This one stops right here so that they don't interfere with each other. Okay? So they all come to a stopping point. This one is going to come up and stop right there. This one is going to come down and stop right there. But this one from up here attaches the upper and under collar. And this one just attaches the collar to the lapel. And this attaches the upper portion of the lapel, front and back, upper and under. So they all stop right at the same point. Now you can tell where that stopping point is if you establish the first one that you sew in. You, like, let's say you stitched all of this in and you stopped right there. Okay, so you know right here on the back side, and you have to keep these all pulled together so that you don't catch one folded up or folded under. So you have to be really careful when you turn the corners that you stop, and you know right here, that's where that one stopped. So if you see this is where this one stopped, then you can stitch up to it or stitch back, or it might already be stitched in, so you know that's where you stop right there on that one. Okay, and so then that stays in place, and you leave it just like that and go down to right here and leave this one stitched, because this is kind of like a 1, 2, 3 portion of stopping and starting, and you see where this one was stitched to, and it's going to connect where this one was stitched to, and it's going to stitch down here and then turn the corner, and you see how they're telling you, they're suggesting you stitch clear off. You can do that, or turn the corner. I just remember the rule that I told you, in a lofty fabric, sometimes you don't want a super right angle on your corner. You might want it a little bit curved, see, a little rounded. See if that works the best. Sometimes a real straight angle works just fine. And then you would just stitch on down. That's the easier part, to stitch on down the lapel. And let's talk a little bit. So right here would be stitched together. And hopefully that makes sense. With this video, you should be able to replay it and go back through and have it make a little more sense to you. Okay? But I've tried to say it a bunch of times. This is how it fits together. These two seams come in attaching the collar to the lapel. These two seams right here, okay? And then this seam comes into that point attaching upper and under collar, okay? And then this comes in to attach upper and lower lapel. And they all end in the same spot. And if you do it correctly, it'll turn out like this, and it'll turn out like this. And if it doesn't, you go back in and see where you made a little goof, because it's cut and structured so that it will all come together just right there. Okay? There are times when I have my little lapel V in here. It just is hard to get it closed up exactly sometimes. So I will take a needle and thread sometimes on the exterior, and I will just go in and whip stitch invisibly so that it closes it up really, really nicely. And you can do that too. hopefully you're finding that you're a real expert with your needle and thread, and you can close up on the public side if it's not just closed perfectly. You can go in and whip stitch that closed. Okay. All right. I hope that helps you kind of see how that all goes together. It's it's not super hard, and you're gonna love what it turns out like. Okay, so that's the upper and under collar sample. Hopefully that helps you kind of see how that all goes together. Now, a couple of things that I wanted to go back to. The last class that we had, I was trying to get you guys prepared to put this bias strip in around your sleeve arm side, because we were getting prepared to go through and put the sleeves in. And so we've got to install this before we put the sleeve in. So, this is our shoulder pad. And I had some patterns that I was going to show you if we were still in the classroom, but for making shoulder pads. I have a couple of them, and maybe the next time we put out a video, I'll just get my pattern out and show it to you, but it's too much for today. Anyway, remember how I told you to save the little strips, the little bias strips? Well, I went ahead and stitched mine together. I did a zigzag stitch and just stitched them together so that made a long bunch, so that, and you don't even have to have all the threads clipped off. I know that doesn't look super neat, but this is what we're going to do with them. So we're going to pin this into place right here because it's going to get hand stitched in here. And this is in preparation for the sleeve going in. Let me get this pin out of here. I always pin these pieces in here so that I won't lose track of them. Okay. So we're going to pin this in, and this is going to give structure and strength to the seam of the arm side. And then when we stitch our sleeve in, the sleeve will be stitched right in onto here. Okay, this will be the seam line where we stitch will be about right there. So it just adds structure, strength, and a roundness, and more stability to that seam, the sleeve seam. Because we want that nice and round on this side too. If we're going to put the sleeve head in on the head of the sleeve, at the top of the sleeve, that's going to kind of poof out the roundness at the shoulder, and this will add the structure on the interior part of the jacket. So that's why we're going to pin it in here and then go in and do a sort of pad stitching it into place. But you see that we don't put it clear to the edge of the seam allowance. We're just putting it in about probably 3/8 of an inch maybe from that edge, and then it's just going to get stitched by hand. Just clip it off right at the seam stitching line where it's stitched, so that it doesn't bulk up that underarm seam at all. On both sides, it's going to start and stop right where the seam stitching is. And this one's just a tad long here, so I'm just going to trim off just a tiny little bit of it. All right, and then we'll take a needle and thread, and it probably doesn't even matter that much what color you use, but since I do have the brown, I'm going to use the brown. And we'll stitch that into place. So let me get my needle going here. Another knot so that it doesn't come off. But this will prepare the arm side so that we can then go in and stitch into place our sleeve, okay? And I hope that you have set in a sleeve before. I know some of you got into tailoring and kind of didn't have too awfully much prep sewing, and some of you are kind of new to sewing, so make sure you know how to stitch a sleeve in. And remember how we talked about the pressing of the sleeve head, actually the top portion at the shoulder area. Remember my tool, my pressing tool that we used. So this is how we're going to press this or stitch this in. Some might want to go in. I know Claire Schaefer would probably tell you to stitch down the outer side of it. You can do that if you want. That's going to be 2 lines of stitching. And this one goes a little faster because I don't really think it matters. And I like the open stretchability of this bias edge clipped like that because you're going to need stretch in a curved arm side. So I just go ahead and install it this way, and I'm just kind of basically stitching it to the hair canvas below it. I'm not stitching through to the public side at all. It's just going to attach to the hair canvas. So here we are, just a couple of inches from the end. Didn't make you watch the whole sleeve part get sewn on, but this is finishing up stitching on this little bias strip. And we're going to finish up and then make sure all the pins are taken out. And take those pins out, and then I'm going to be ready to pin the sleeve in. Now, the sleeve has to go in before the sleeve head can actually be stitched into place. So let me just talk to you just a moment about the sleeve itself. So I told you that I basted this sleeve head fabric in right here, and I'm going to have to remove it. I just put it in just to make sure it was in place and I didn't lose track of it, because I took this when I went to Tucson for just a little bit of a weekend. It was my vacation. But remember, and I didn't want to lose that. Remember, we've got the interfacing in here, okay, the lightweight interfacing. You don't really need to put the hair canvas at the head of the sleeve, and it goes all the way around and even to the undersleeve in here. It just adds structure. It doesn't have to be in there. If it's a really lightweight fabric, you might not want it in there, but it will. Like any undergarments that you're wearing or sleeves or anything else that you would be wearing with this jacket, if you have more stability in there, it will keep the clothing that you wear that goes into your sleeve, it will keep it in a better shape. Now notice, Abby's probably going to get a closer up on how I've already put in my basting stitch, my machine basting stitch, and then remember how you pull the thread, you pull your gathering thread and push the ease into the head of the sleeve, which is the top of the sleeve. And you notice how I've got it pressed in there so that it curves. It has a nice curve. And this is going to fill that. After we get the sleeve sewn in, that's what the sleeve head will do. It'll keep that nice and poofed out, okay? It'll have a nice roll there at the top. So we're going to find, now that we've got this little structuring fabric in there, we're going to go in and pin our sleeve into place. And this is how we're going to do it. We're going to find the markings for where everything's supposed to be. And there should be a little notch to tell you where the shoulder seam is. And I pin that into place first. And then we're going to find where the under sleeve goes and pin all of those into place. All right, so here we've got the sleeve now pinned into place, and I just placed the shoulder pad up in there. It's pinned into place, and I'm going to go in and baste it into place. And let me just kind of give you an idea. If I put this little piece in here, which is going to be the sleeve head, you'll see that it'll just kind of poof out that seam that curves into the sleeve head. It just poofs that out a little bit. So then you've got the shoulder pad giving a little fullness, and then the sleeve head will poof that out. So that's the sleeve pinned into place there. And you can usually tell if it's in right, it will hang correctly. It'll hang, against the jacket. One thing while we're talking about sleeves, this type of sleeve, Armani jackets are like extremely expensive jackets. And I'll just tell you a couple of features that I've learned about them. And I learned them, I think, from Claire Schaefer, that an Armani jacket has a really flat sleeve head right here. They will have their ease down below. This little portion up here is usually flat, and then they'll have ease in this section and in the back. And the way the sleeve is constructed, this under portion where mine is, you see this right here, this is the undersleeve, and on the pattern it's called undersleeve. But they have an undersleeve that is curved so that when it's hanging on a hanger, the sleeve hangs inward. And if you ever go into like Neiman Marcus and look at the Armani jackets, you can tell that it's an Armani by the way the sleeve, it's like it's holding its arms, its hands together. All right, so does that kind of give you an idea for how you're going to do this? So the next thing I will do is baste by hand to make sure that my sleeve is in correctly. And then I will stitch by machine, and then I will attach the sleeve head into that same seam allowance. And I think I'll show that the next time because I'm gonna have to take some time to stitch that in first. So before we're done today, I wanted to do one more thing and show you the back side of the buttonhole. And this is dark, but remember the last time we met in class, I showed you how I stitched through all the layers with this pink thread. I stitched through the upper layer and through the facing, okay? And then, so I'm going to show on this one that I'm doing that with white thread. You stitch, this hasn't been clipped on the back side yet, okay? So I'm going to review that. You baste it into place, and it shows you that on the handout that I gave you about making the bound buttonholes. It has a lot of green fabric on that one. So we're basting around. I've already put the pins in place. Sometimes the basting goes in before the pins. But remember what these two horizontal lines are. Excuse me, not horizontal, vertical lines. These two vertical lines. The horizontal line, here's a portion of it. It went down the very center of the buttonhole, the bound buttonhole. But it's like a football end zone shape with the two verticals and then the horizontal over which the football has to be kicked over the center. So that, just kind of think of it that way. You've got the two vertical lines that tell you how long. You're not going to stitch your little line of buttonhole any longer than where that vertical line is. That vertical line of stitching, that tells you where to stop, because in class that was the problem with some of your buttonholes. I gave you little strips out of this fabric and you stitched right to the end of the strip rather than to where the two vertical lines were. Okay, you stop right there at the vertical line. And then you remember you do the double V clip on the back side. You puncture here, or double Y. Clip up into this point and into that point, and then you turn these two lips so that their fabric is right here on the back side, and make sure to have interfacing back here underneath it. And then the reason that I put the pins in here on each corner, I'm putting the pin right exactly where that corner is, because that's where I'm going to clip to. So I enter here. Remember how I tried to show you that, and we're going to do a close-up of this. And so I clipped right in the very center, and then I'm going to clip just a little tiny bit further, and then I clip. And don't catch any of this in it, okay? It's just this back piece, the back little facing piece. Clip right up to that pin, and then this one clips right up to this pin, and this one clips same way up to the pin, and this one up to the pin. And then we can take the pins loose, and we'll use them to do what I did on this. I pinned lots of pins, pinning this facing into place. And this is what I'm doing with it. I'm going to pin it so that right where that stitch line is, where I stitched in my buttonhole, I'm going to stitch right, or pin the fold back right there. And then I'm going to fold this one back and pin it into place. And this is, remember, this is what we do. We hand stitch this into place. All right. Where's my other little pin? Here's my pin. All right. So that's going to get pinned into place there. And then these little double Y points, we poke those back, get those out of the way so that those ends of the buttonhole are opened up also. Okay, and just try to do it as rectangular a shape as you can get it. And you've got to use scissor points like I'm using right here to poke this back in, and poke the little pieces. And as you go around, you with your needle will get those little points back into place too. but try to stitch it with the exact same color of thread that you, so that you see mine is white, and I would never stitch it down with white except to demonstrate. That's why I'm using this one. This is the one that I made, one of the ones I made in the classroom. Okay, and so just make sure that you get a little rolled edge in here to stitch down. You don't want to be stitching a raw edge of just frayable fabric. And that's why on this jacket I put so many pins in there. And then just as you stitch over it, just remove the pin. But you have to try to use that little stitching line. See how I just pin that back right along the little white stitching line. And so I've got it ready to start. I'm going to put a needle or put thread with a knot in the double thread and start in just slip stitching it into place. Okay, all the way around, and in the corners, in these little clipped corners, you stitch closer together. Okay, and in each corner stitch closer together to hold it down into place better. So remember how I told you that sometimes you can't get your stitches close enough together when you're going around here to please you, and so go a second time around and stitch in between each of the stitches that you did the previous time, and that'll get them closer together. And so once you get those all stitched into place, then you can remove this basting, and you can remove the vertical lines and all the extra markings that you put in to make your buttonhole. Okay, and that is how these will get finished off. These are harder to see than that. That's why I'm having this be the sample. But I've got these all pinned in here, and I'm going to go around and with brown thread, I'm going to stitch them all into place. And then I'll take out all of this. Okay? But that probably needs to happen after you get your collar in properly. And you can do it before the sleeve goes in or after the sleeve goes in. It doesn't really matter for sure exactly, but the next time I start filming, we're going to talk about the hems. So get your buttonhole stitched in and get your collar on and the sleeves installed, because I'm going to show you how we will go in here and work on the sleeve hem. This is kind of giving you a little heads up for the next time. I have my sleeve sort of in place here. I don't have it. I don't think well, looks like I did hem it in. But I put a little strip of hair canvas that I stitched into place, and you can see that it's in there. I'll try to take one apart to show you. But I've got hair canvas at the very bottom hem, and I measured my arm in the sleeve so I know I like the length, because the next thing that we're going to do is attach by machine. Once we get this hem in like this, then we're going to attach by machine our lining, the sleeve lining. We can do it by hand. You could slip stitch it all in place by hand in here, but I'm going to show you how to do it by machine, and then we'll pull it up and it'll be ready to attach at the shoulder. But we'll have to have the lining all installed too at that time, and then I'm going to talk to you about the hem at the bottom of the jacket too. So we're getting there, getting close. So keep working. We're going to get this finished. What I've taught you today might take you, because I know some of you were a little further behind than others, but it might take you a little bit longer to get this done. But keep working. And with what I've shown you, you can go back and do reviews. This will be good for that. So, see ya.